morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good, good, good morning, sun. Good, good, good morning. Good, good morning. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good, good, good morning, sun. Good morning, life. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above.
Okay, let's see if I did this right again this morning. Every single Friday is a new adventure. Let's see if we are live. Okay, looking good. We have audio. So, good morning. Happy Friday. It has been quite the week. So, let's jump in. October 10th, episode 184. Time flies. If you're around, send a question on X, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. I have the chat up. Greetings. And trivia question. Anyone know what this food product is? And this is from a restaurant shop in Santa Barbara called Locum. And it is Turkish Delight and Baklava. Buenos dias, Ted, sir. Late night security consulting. Um, this is called Turkish Delight. This is a non-traditional version of it, chocolate and hazelnut. And so I walked by this store in Santa Barbara this weekend. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I sent a photo to Jocelyn because she's a big fan of turkey. And she said, oh, you have to try Turkish Delight. So I went in this store and tried some Turkish Delight. And I will need to know more to understand the context and when and how much people eat of this stuff. But I can't imagine wanting more than one piece a month. Let's put it that way. It is a pretty, yeah, chewy, intense, sweet, different. It's very, very different. So, not bad, but different. So I tried the chocolate and hazelnut, which is good, but man, one bite and I'm like, I'm good for a week. So I'm not sure why one would buy an entire pack of this stuff. So that was my education for the weekend. Turkish Delight. Yes. Now, interestingly, the traditional Turkish delight that the guy gave me, which was it was red in color and it had, I think, pistachio on the outside. It was not overly sweet. It was actually quite mild. So, in that sense, it was good. But it was super chewy. I don't know what they. He said it was honey based, but I need to watch a documentary and see how they make it, but it was so chewy. It's just pulling your teeth off. So, like, very intense chew session there. So, yeah, like, I can't imagine sitting on the sofa watching a TV show and having a bowl of this stuff. The weekend, el fin de semana, road trip, wedding, and more antics. So my wife and I drove up to Central California, kind of lower winery region of California, and we attended my friend's wedding. It was an unconventional R-rated adults only wedding. Very different. My friend is kind of entertaining. And so, yeah, it was a casual wedding, non-formal wedding. They hired comedians and told lewd jokes and had balloon animals and a the caricature artist and you name it. It was quite an experience. So we had a great time up there. And then we had a free morning, and so we headed over to Hearst Castle. Now, despite having lived in California for many years, had never been up to Hearst Castle, and it was pretty phenomenal. If you have a chance to go, I highly recommend it. It is quite an interesting place. Um, really amazing tours by, I think it's State of California Parks Department, who manages the entire property. Phenomenal tour guides, really great job. They know every square inch of this place inside and out. Like you say, that's interesting. And they tell you the story about the light fixture or lamp that is hanging in front of a doorway and how the one on the left is different than the one on the right. Wild, absolutely wild. Unbelievably ornate, like beyond description ornate, and pretty crazy what William Randolph Hearst built in a mountain in the middle of nowhere in Central Coast, California. Mm. And I seem to have a mild cold or whatever that just will not go away. So we went to Hearst Castle, went to the wedding, had a great time. And over the weekend, I learned an annoying lesson. And so this has been kind of creeping up on me. And so I was kind of aware of it. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to deal with it, which is not fun. And that is credit cards. So I have a subscription with Passenger Coffee. I love their coffee. Awesome company, awesome coffee, great. Their passenger stowaway is phenomenal for espresso, my favorite espresso bean. And so I have a subscription, 2 bags a month for $34.68, free shipping. Occasionally, I'll get an email say, no, your coffee is shipped. But if I don't pay attention closely, I will not notice that it says you paid $75.24 for 2 bags. And this, when it goes haywire, this price is kind of random. One time it was 70, then this time it was 75. I have to know to look for this now, pay attention to this because this happened twice now. And it's a recurring order. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but they're like, not sure what happened. And they fix it, give me a credit. But it's up to me to find this problem and let them know and request a credit. It's super annoying. And it's difference between $34 and $75 for 2 bags of coffee. Kind of significant, right? So this has been in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, I kind of need to pay attention to this. So when I bought the Turkish Delight this weekend, I swear, well, I know the guy said it's $3 a piece, but what I didn't know is apparently they charge by the pound, not by the piece. So I don't know what the process was. I didn't notice him weighing it, but he cut 2 pieces, wrapped it up, and I went to the register, and I swear the register said $6 and change. And I didn't do a tip because it was just 2 pieces of stuff, and I was ready to go. And I did not ask for a receipt. I just went on the register, no tip, signed it, walked away. Well, I come home and the credit card charge is $9.60 for 2 pieces of Turkish Delight. So I go online and I look, and it seems I'm not the only one to encounter the unexpected charges on the card from this store. So I don't know if it's the miscommunication of estimated price versus weighed price for this product, or whether something shady is going on with the store, or I did submit a contact to the store and the owner did reply and say, I'm sorry. And, I don't know what the deal is with these point of sale systems, it's like blah, blah, blah. But $9.60 is kind of sketchy. So now it seems I'm going to have to pick up a credit card receipt for every stupid transaction and waste my time checking. Like it was a $3 difference, but it's more the principle. Like it's just annoying. So I've now had this twice or 3 times actually in the last few months. So now I need to look for this. Like, what is the solution? How do you check for these charges? I don't know. And without the receipt, it's hard to refute what's going on. So super annoying. Anyway, that was my weekend. Weekly projects. It's a new month, so we do one-on-one team calls. At least I do with the Berlin team. So I did 2 of them. I need to do 2 more or 3 more to wrap up with the team. And we continue to learn and test the Macorma Super Check and Overflow Remittance. And I had a senior moment of imagined work, which I don't really talk about it later, but I swear I had set up new Azure tenants. I swear I had documented them. I swear I had emailed my developer about these and that we were going to transition. I could not find any trace of these. They were not documented in my password manager. I couldn't find the email I thought I sent to him. And after 30 minutes of looking, I thought I just was imagining this and hallucinating. I finally remembered an hour after our call how I did it. I like kind of, the clues started to pop back into my brain and I found what I did. I still have no documentation of it, which kind of concerns me. So now I need to research it. I did them as child kind of associated tenants to our main Azure tenant, which has pros and cons. The pro is you can, in theory, go from your main tenant and have admin access to your child tenants. The con is if your main tenant is compromised, the attacker potentially has access to your child tenants. So I will probably try to redo those as completely independent Azure tenants, which is a hassle to set up and to administer, but in theory, it is more secure. So that was an interesting lesson. I'm super, super conscious whenever I set up new passwords, new access, new usernames, anything. I always document it in my password manager, but I had nothing in this case, which concerns me. And this week I did more lawyering, tried to deal with a contract review and getting legal quotes, and I had an interesting lesson in plumbing. Who knew? Yep. And I'm sure there's a parallel to Business Central and software development. I continue to defer my Vibe conference session submissions and modern software engineering. Big surprise, those go on the back burner as reality creeps in. At the wedding, I met a guy who is from the town clear across the country where my aunt and uncle lived. And I have been to that town, been to all the neighboring towns. And as soon as he said the name, I was like, been there, know exactly where you are, know all the towns nearby, all the train stops, right? So we had a great chat with him and his wife, and it turns out that he does large commercial construction projects. For instance, he'll do an 800 million construction project for condos or apartments or whatever in a big or shopping center development, you name it. So I asked him, how do you deal with unexpected situations, right? So if you've ever seen a large construction project, you'll know you'll start digging to put in a new water line and you'll run into gas and sewer and stuff that's buried there that is not supposed to be there. It's not on any plans, it's not on any site survey, but there you go. You got to deal with it, right? And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with delays? How do you deal with permitting issues? How do you deal with, changes? And unfortunately, it wasn't quite the answer I got, but it was informative. In his role, he's kind of like the job foreman, where he said to me, hey, I don't start the project without a complete pile of every design document that I need. I need surveys, I need architectural diagrams, I need engineering documents, I need the electrical, I need the plumbing. Everything must be on paper or, an approved design before I deal with it. So from his perspective, he's kind of in the enviable situation where it's like, hey, there's a gas line there. It's not on the plans. It's not on the project. Like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, not my problem. Which fascinating, right? And so mistakes. He's like, you have a wall here on the plans. we can't put a wall here because this is where the plumbing comes up through the wall. And he's like, fix it. And so he's basically in the implementation phase, and he is like, hey, you need a change request. Don't bother me. And Ted says, yes, waterfall process. Like, it is the stereotypical 100% design must be laid out, full traditional construction project from A to Z. So I said, well, what happens when there's a change, when there's a problem, when there's an unanticipated thing? Because it always happens. He says, yes, every single project. He said he's worked on a former golf course from the 1800s or something, early 1900s. They developed this land that apparently used to be a golf course. He says, you wouldn't believe what they had to dig up. It was like a toxic waste dump. And so all of a sudden, the project had to grind to a halt while they bring in these environmental surveys and have all this toxic cleanup, because all the chemicals from the old golf course, they couldn't just dispose of the dirt. They then had to have a full environmental plan to remove the dirt and have it hauled to a toxic, or a dirty dirt site, whatever you do with old golf course dirt. He says, not my problem. It's like, wow, that must be nice. Like, who deals with it? He goes, well, I don't know. An engineer who made the mistake, the project manager or the customer who didn't order the environmental review or the soil survey or whatever, and they foot the bill. They take the hit. That's the potential contingency that the developers have to take on. It's like, oh, I envy, I envy your job. So he's just like, hey, not my problem. He's like, hey, you got a problem. He's like, I get paid either way. It's like, man, we just do not have that in the software world. I don't know if there is an equivalent, but customers after a 30-minute call want a full quote and a date. And I'm like, and they don't want to pay for the design process. So I don't know. Yeah, we just kind of deal with it low budget. So that was interesting. Monday, Linus. I continue to talk with the Berlin team about medium and long-term learning goals, and I am emphasizing that they may be busy on a day-to-day basis. That is not good enough. In fact, that's bad. If you are busy running around doing tasks, support tickets, projects, report layouts, data loads, whatever, on a day-to-day basis, that's not good. You always have to be working on a medium and long-term goal in order to learn something new, learn a new topic, learn a new skill. Otherwise, in 2 weeks, you're not going to have progressed. In 4 weeks, you're not going to have progressed. And in 3 months, you're just going to be doing the exact same thing you've been doing over the last year. So I'm pushing them to always have some new topic, new learning, new software, new feature that they are going to learn in order to improve. And then on Monday, I called a plumber because I had a clogged sink drain. And there will be a parallel in here somewhere. So all of a sudden, the sink works fine, and then it doesn't work fine. And it's just totally backed up. And I'm like, what? And it didn't look like this originally. This looks much worse than it was, because this is after the plumber spent over 30 minutes trying to get a snake down that drain. Now, why couldn't this plumber get a snake down the drain, you might ask? And that plumber, trust me, was asking the same question. He goes, am I just not competent? It was kind of funny. He's like, I didn't want you to think I was like, didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, no, I knew exactly what was going on, because this bathroom was remodeled, and this went from a 1 sink vanity to a 2 sink vanity. And fortunately, I take pictures of these things, because whenever a wall is open, if you're a homeowner, you know that this will come back to be valuable in the future. And any plumbing experts out there, take a look at those drain pipes and you tell me what the problem is. While I love my handyman / contractor, he is awesome, trust him on everything, he implemented this in a way that has come back to bite me. And if you're a plumbing guru, specifically a drain pipe guru, you may see the problem. And the problem is that those 90-degree fittings, the T that brings those two vanity pipes together, there's going to be a problem. When you try to send a snake from one sink, it's just going to go straight across to the other sink. There is no way the pipes will not feed the snake down to the vertical drain pipe. And apparently this is a code requirement, and this technically, I believe, is not to code. You need to have the pipes angle downward in order to allow and anticipate a snake. Now, as an alternative, you could have a clean out port here, but a vanity covers up this entire wall, so there's no real option for this. So my options were rip the vanity out, cut open the wall, try to add a clean out port or redo the pipes entirely, which would probably cost a couple $1,000, or find an alternative way to snake this drain. Holy cow. So what's the lesson here? The lesson here, hello, Christian. Buenas noches, señor. The lesson here is, what are the odds of needing to snake a bathroom vanity sink past the P-traps and past the first 3 to 5 feet, 3 feet of pipe in the wall? Like, why would you need to do that? It's not like you're putting a bunch of food down these drains, right? And Ted has already anticipated the step. That's the only logical step, right? So why would you need a clean out? This isn't a kitchen drain. This isn't a commercial environment, right? So why would you need to design for this unlikely event, right? So this is a trade-off. Do you design for the most bulletproof plumbing, like commercial grade plumbing on a bathroom vanity in a house that, is used by a guy with no hair? So you're not going to clog it with hair. So what's the purpose of this? Well, of course, I'm the guy who has this issue. And so the issue is not with the P-traps, not with the local pipes. The issue is down the pipe somewhere else. It's a long story. So yes, I look at the plumber. I'm like, there's no way I'm ripping this wall open to put this in. He's like, well, there's a wall on the other side from the bedroom. We could put a clean out there. I'm like, yeah, so I'm going to cut open the wall and have this ABS lid sticking out of a wall of a bedroom. Are you kidding? It's like, yes, we could do it, but, it's going to be a mess. There's water pipes next to these sewer pipes, which apparently is also not to code. So it's just like, there's no good option. So I'm like, hey, he's like, well, we can go through the roof, but I have a concrete shingle roof. So if you're familiar with these types of tile roofs, you've put foot on there, you are going to break a tile. It's pretty much guaranteed. There's just no way to walk on a roof, and it's a 2-story roof. So going on a 2-story tile roof, concrete shingle roof, I now have broken tiles and then need to call a guy to come and repair the roof. Like, you just can't win. Welcome to home ownership. So what is plan C? Plan C is to go into the attic and tap into the vent pipe from the attic. And that is every plumber's least desirable option. Fortunately, I have a pretty big attic that you can walk in and get across to the other end of the house and get into this vent pipe. So I'm like, cool. But the plumber is thinking, wait, I have to drag a snake up there, right? So it's not the plumber's primary option. That's what we had to do. And the plumber gave me a quote, $700 to go in the attic, cut open the pipe, and run a snake down. So I call my handyman back, and I have him come in, and I didn't include a photo of it, but yeah, he goes back in there, and oh, man, I didn't include. Oh, that was on Thursday. Okay, so this is just the planning phase. What am I going to do? I've got a $700 quote. So how much do you design for changes, maintainability problems? This is a problem where it's like, wait, could we have been expected to design for this? Well, code might say yes. Reality is no. So I've had code like this where customers like, oh, well, there's this problem. Why didn't you anticipate this? I'm like, I'm supposed to anticipate the probability that you are going, this is a real situation, that you are going to use 2 load balance servers to make calls to the same API simultaneously within 15 milliseconds of each other that could cause contention. You expected me to anticipate this due to a problem in your load balancing environment. Like, no, fortunately, my logging did anticipate this, and I was able to pinpoint the issue down to 1 millisecond to tell them where their problem was. But that was luck. You normally do not design for these edge cases, right? Because it's very expensive, and there are 1,000 edge cases. So here you go. I'm living in an edge case. Tuesday, Martes, legal contract review. So I am debating whether to go forward with this, but we're at a point where a customer wants these changes to our contract, and they could have hundreds of thousands of dollars of implications. So I'm like, not going to agree to that, and maybe I'll consider hiring a lawyer. So I don't have a lawyer on retainer. That's expensive. We don't have a need for it often. So I'm going to up counsel, submitted a request for proposals, and said, here's what I need, A, B, and C. This is the issue, and here's what I want. So I'm getting quotes on that. So I submit this project, and I got 10 proposals within a few hours. And these proposals are all over the place. So if you want to know what the cost of a smaller independent lawyer costs, that is anywhere from $250 an hour to $450 an hour. And these proposals are all over the map. One says $378 flat fee. Another one says $595 flat fee. The other one says $1,037 based on a 3-hour estimate. And I'm like, wait, what? Another one is $1,300 flat fee. And then others just submit their hourly rate. It's like, well, it depends on what you want done. So it's all over the place. And I'm guessing it's going to come in minimum $500, but probably $1,000 just for this contract review to discuss intellectual property, ownership, and retaining my rights and not encumbering my IP going forward, but protecting the client's IP and software going forward, and then limitation of liability. That's pretty much the only two things I'm interested in, and I'm talking about $400 to $1,300 for that. Good times. And then we got a support ticket from a customer asking how they could set up recurring purchase invoices. And I was like, wait, what? So I don't know that I've had a customer ask me for this, and maybe it's just because in the Dynamics GP world, we had a feature called recurring batches. So you could set up your recurring weekly, monthly batches, whether it's in the GL, AR, AP, and every month you'd click a button, it would generate a new batch, and it would basically copy everything in your recurring batch. All of those transactions would be ready to go, and you review, edit, and post. Well, BC is a little different, and as far as I know, there is no equivalent to recurring batches. So customers like, oh, I want recurring purchase invoices. So whether that's rent, utilities, cell phone bill, whatever, she's like, I don't want to have to enter this every month, and I don't want to forget to enter it in case we don't see the bill. So what's the best option? So we looked around and asked Perplexity, and I had never used this feature, but there is a copy document feature, at least on the purchase invoice side. I'm assuming it exists in other transaction areas. I need to check where it does and does not exist. And you can go to this lovely menu series, which Perplexity originally had it was under the Actions button somewhere else, but now apparently this is a new one. When you have a new purchase invoice, you go to Actions, then to Functions, then to Other, and then to Copy Document. The chance of you finding that randomly, slim to none. So buried under this pile of menus, you can click on Copy Document when you have the new blank purchase invoice open, and you have the option to copy just the lines. That's the default, it seems, but you can toggle copy header fields, and it will copy the entire document, header and lines. And there are some things it doesn't copy, but it seems to copy most of the fields. And super handy, and the customer's going to give that a try to see if that works for them. And after you click on copy document, you get an options window that allows you to choose header or not. And it says, where do you want to copy from? And this is a little confusing. If you choose invoice, it will only allow you to select from unposted purchase invoices. You have to know whether it's posted or not and choose either invoice or posted invoice depending on what you want to copy. So it seems to work well. You do need to know how it works and you need to be a little careful. Ted says it can be dangerous if folks assume they know what the invoice was and don't double check it's exactly what they need. Yeah. And so when you choose the unposted invoice or posted invoice, you need to make sure, is that the right invoice? You need to review it because you could be selecting from 1,000 posted invoices, right? So it's not like the Dynamics GP recurring invoice where you know this is the correct utilities or monthly batch of invoices and it's always going to copy. You're going to have to select at the individual invoice level, say, yes, copy that one and I want to recur. So it's not exactly everything she wanted, but good morning, Eric. Buenos dias. It's not exactly what she wanted, but it might do for now. And I've asked her, okay, do you want something more elaborate that allows you to have these 5 utility invoices and make it like the recurring batch in Dynamics GP? We'll see. Hola, Mr. Prendergrass. Wow, look at this. Yeah, so depending on what you're doing, she just wanted things like utility invoice, administrative invoices. These are GL account only, non-inventory. So really depends on what the customer requirements are. As Ted notes, location fields, dropship, special order items, pricing, right? Price list, discounts, who knows? Is there a standard order function on vendors? Yeah, and that might be on one. Oh, there is a standard order. She said she had tried the thing where I think it's the recurring invoice lines or whatever the term is in BC, where when you create a new order for a vendor, as soon as you pop in the vendor, it automatically can copy those lines. But she wanted just more automatic. And I think it's more like the GP recurring batch where it's like, hey, these are monthly invoices, boom. Let me make sure I got all the invoices. Let me update all the totals, boom. Everything is posted. So I think that's really what you want. So I don't think there's an equivalent in BC. And after we had that call with the customer for copy document, which is still ongoing, we just got a ping today on Teams from the customer asking more questions. File import design had a call about that to clarify the fields requirements. And this partner wants 3, 4, 5 of these for his customers. He says the customers are sick of using configuration packages. They just want a much simpler, single click, highly automated solution to import their data. And they don't want to use an integration tool. They don't want to fight with the data. So we're starting to build that for one customer. We'll see if it extends to others. And anyway, and Ted says recurring purchase lines. And I think that's what they tried earlier, but they want this for multiple bills. They want it more automated, fewer clicks. So we'll see. And then while looking at these options, we saw this: get vendor subscription contract lines. And those of you in the BC world, you know where this is headed. It's like, did we go down this road? And this is like the recurring or subscription billing module that was automatically installed in BC for everyone without them asking us. It was acquired from someone, and I don't know of anyone who has used or implemented this yet. We have not used it internally. So Jocelyn is going to look at this, but she said when she started to go down the rabbit hole of this, it sent her down the path of needing to activate service management. And I said, whoa, stop, do not do that. That's a whole different ball game. So I told her we need to have a call to look at this because if this requires service management, which sounds kind of weird, we do not want to go there. So I'm going to look at it and see whether subscription would do the job and have these recurring bills. Eric says no. I'm kind of there, and that's kind of the sentiment of everyone that I've talked to, but just out of curiosity to reduce our ignorance, we'll see what happens there. So, yeah, that's file imports. Oh, and a blog post by Yun Chu. Apparently in version 27, BCV 27, he found, or the launch videos explained, that the error dialog now has additional information, which is good. It has an error text and error code, and it has a visible call stack here, thankfully. It was very annoying before. We saw nothing. You had to copy error details. That was like a regression. And now it shows the initial call stack and the version number of the base app and potentially PTs or AppSource app. So that's kind of a nice refinement. So go check out Yun Chu's blog post 68174 for more information on that. Wednesday, miércoles. Cheers. I attended a 7 a.m. Doug Meetup leader call. Very inconsiderate for those of us on the West Coast, but I dragged myself out of bed, got ready for this call, and I attended this call because we are starting a Dynamics user group in El Salvador. It will be the first Doug user group in all of Latin America, from Mexico all the way down to the tip of South America. So Fatima is going to lead that. And so I attended the call on her behalf because she was not available at that time, and we're going to get that started. And then I had a call to review the tenant admin dashboard with Franklin. And that is the internal app that we're building that will allow us to administer multiple customers from a single dashboard within Business Central, essentially have access to BC Admin Center, all of that BC Admin Center data from one page in Business Central across all customers. So that is going well. He's progressing. That's going to be pretty cool. And we continued our El Coyolar Christmas Festival planning, and we had a call to discuss down to how do we check in the kids and adults, and how do we even roll assignments. They have planned this down, that these people will be responsible for these age groups, these toys, these check-in, and we have redundant volunteers in case anyone gets busy. And Fatima will be project manager, coordinator, everything. So awesome. So I purchased the concert style wristbands. So we'll check people in. We'll have age groups based on colors. And we will also have the raffle ticket for the toys, because we had clever kids getting in line 5 times, getting multiple toys last year. So they're no dummies, right? Kids will find a way. So we will have the raffle tickets, which they will inevitably say they lost, right? But we'll figure it out. Anyway, so we are planning the Christmas festival accordingly. And upcoming events, próximos eventos, which I was walking around in Santa Barbara. We walked by a theater and they had a flyer that was in Spanish and it said próximos eventos up across the top. I was like, honey, I know what that means. My wife's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, hey, próximos eventos, upcoming events. Duh. So my Spanish is coming in handy. Summit NA, October 20th through 23rd, coming up in a mere 10 days. And that is in Orlando, Florida. And if you have not signed up, I don't know if there's still any availability left, but the BC Bash is on Tuesday, October 21st, 9 p.m. at Cuba Libre Restaurant. So head on over to steveendo.link/BC Bash 2025, all lowercase, in order to register for that party. I don't know the capacity. I think last year was 700 and we sold out in 3 days. Directions EMEA, November 4th through 6th in Poland, Poznan, Poland, and directionsforpartners.com. Register, book your flights. Thursday, Jueves. Oh boy, this was yesterday. It was 3 hours of drain pipe fun. After getting the $700 quote from the plumber, I said, Eric said, if their air traffic controllers are working, yes. I'm pretty sure Poland is not directly affected by the US shutdown, but you should be good. Christian says there will be a live BC Birinar in Poznan. I do not know how to sign up for that, but go look for the BC Birinar in Poznan prior to Directions EMEA. So rather than pay the $700 to the plumber to crawl in my attic, I was like, okay, well, let's just learn something about drain pipes. So I headed over to um Orlando. Oh, Eric is saying yes, probably good advice. So in Orlando, Florida, flying to Orlando because of the US federal government shutdown due to our lovely non-budget process where we have no budget because it's always a deficit. Air traffic controllers are not being paid in the US because they are technically federal employees, so they get to decide whether they call in sick or not. So potentially expect delays coming into Orlando, Florida, if this budget fund continues for 10 more days. So enjoy. Plan accordingly, bring extra clothes in your backpack, and just be prepared for some delays. So I headed over to Home Depot and picked up some lovely ABS components just in case we needed to do something crazy in the attic. And then I was like, well, this is at least the third time I've had to call a plumber, and they charge $225 to come out and clear a drain pipe, which not unreasonable. They're rolling a truck. They got to deal with a 30-minute clean out versus a 2-hour clean out. They got to pay employees. The snake is $1,000 minimum for a commercial grade snake. So, they got to pay for insurance and all that stuff. So I said, well, let me just invest in some tools. Not that I ever want to clean out a drain, but I'm like, this is kind of getting ridiculous. I am in a 1973 house, so this will, it's happening on multiple drains. So I said, hey, I looked around and I found this Ryobi. They have a $90 version, a small version. This is the bigger version. This is a 35-foot bad boy, which looks cool, but really I found out it is like a toy compared to the commercial stuff. But for basic clogs, hair, grease, whatever, it should work. And turns out I'm at Home Depot asking for the batteries, and one battery is one battery is $90. Two batteries is $100. Turns out this woman walks by, is like, oh, he'd be better off getting the 3 battery kit. It's on clearance. So for $101, I got the 3 battery kit because this woman happened to know it was on clearance, buried on the top shelf, not even available anywhere in the store. You just had to have known. She was the only employee in the store who knew that. So 5 employees were hanging out saying, really? So yeah, I got the 3 battery kit for $101 on clearance. And there's some kind of cool little accessories that Ryobi makes. So yeah. That was my plumbing tool upgrade. And it turns out that a 35-foot consumer grade snake is insufficient when you are climbing in the attic and trying to run a snake. So it turns out we tried 35 feet, was not good enough. And so my guy had to pull his 90-pound commercial 75-foot snake into the attic and run it down. And it took him 3 hours of fighting this. So there was something hard in the pipe that blocked it. After 3 hours, he somehow cleared it, cut it out, and you could hear the water rushing out of the pipe. So victory was achieved. I was exhausted. He was exhausted. What a day. And so I was a goner after that, running around, running the store, making him lunch so that he didn't have to leave. Yeah. So problem solved. I am prepared for the next very minor clog, but really, he said, if you have to bring out the big snake, you're going to have issues. It's going to be a fight. So yeah, the consumer grade drain snakes are absolutely no substitute for the commercial grade ones that have the cutting blade and stuff like that. So yeah. And as Ted, my fellow victim in cybersecurity, the My Sonic Wall breach was expanded. Yeah. the mySonicWall breach was expanded, and just to cover everyone, they've been working with Mondiant, who is the high-end commercial grade cybersecurity remediation vendor. And I'm guessing Mondiant just recommended you have no way to know for sure that only 5% of your customers were affected. You need to open this up to 100% so that all of your customers remediate just in case. So Ted and I were up last night trying to remediate all of our firewall configurations, and this involved removing all credentials, shutting down all services on all the devices, doing a configuration backup, and uploading that as a baseline configuration backup because it would eliminate all or most sensitive encrypted values. You still have a couple passwords that are contained in the config file encrypted, but you turn off VPN, any integrations, any management interfaces, then upload it as your baseline config to minimize the secrets that are stored in their cloud backup. And then you have to go through a bunch of remediation steps. You have to reset every single password on the firewall, every SMTP password, every FTP, every syslog password, you name it. It's like 20 pages. I'm kind of dizzy trying to figure out what I'm doing. I barely understand what I'm doing there. And turns out my firewall was acting very strange. I'm kind of concerned, but I rebooted and things started to work again. So I don't know what's going on. Hopefully I was not, my firewall was not attacked or breached. So I had to reset every single email password I have, which is causing all sorts of problems. And yeah, so working on that. So it's a good time in cybersecurity land. Oh, I forgot a beauty shot of my sink. That is what it should look like when the water drains. So I'm very thankful. It is a beautiful experience when your drains work. We take it for granted. And I've had to split up my Próximos Eventos because we got so much going on. I have pushed the 2026 events that are on slide here because we are super cool. 2026 events on tap. Partner in Vibe Conference January 28th through 30th. South Padre Island. And then Directions NA, April 27th through 29th in Orlando. Come on, stop hosting partner conferences in Florida. I don't know what it is. It's tiring, especially for me on the West Coast. So that's April. DynamicsCon May 12th through 15 in Vegas. Thank you, at least kind of western half of the United States. Although that's at the Fontainebleau Resort Hotel, which is apparently having financial issues, so we'll see how that goes. Dynamics Minds is May 25th through 27th in Slovenia, so it is not at the same time or right next to DynamicsCon, which is a good change there. So 4 conferences already lined up for January through May 2026. So get signed up, submit the session proposals. And the Partner in Vibe conference, if anyone is interested in co-presenting with me, hit me up, let me know. I am interested in coming up with some session topics that will be strategic partner educational sessions, like my experience dealing with contracts and lawyers and lawsuits and learning about how that works and how to minimize legal exposure for partners. I am all over that. It's not my favorite thing to do, but because it is something I hate to do, I'm assuming other partners hate to do it. And I have seen a partner who got sued into bankruptcy for $1 million because they did not review their master services agreement contract. And they went off and did some rogue things, and they got sued into non-existence. Do not be that partner. Do a review of all of your contracts, all of your agreements, and hire a lawyer for $1,000, $2,000 to get your act together. Trust me, it's worth it. So I'm happy to do a session on that. Happy to do a session on how you manage your practice, how you manage your team, how you do education, how you do service agreements, how you build a nearshore practice in El Salvador. Like, what kind of insane person would do something like that? I have no idea. If you figure that question out, let me know. So those are the things I'd love to talk about at the Partner in Vibe conference, January 28th through 30th, South Padre Island, Texas. Let me know. Friday, Viernes. I had a customer who was using one of my applications for Dynamics GP asked me a question that no customer has asked me in over 13 years. And I am like, huh. So they said, hey, can you have a config file option so that when we launch the application, the UI is pre-configured with the options we want? And I'm like, sounds reasonable. Okay. No one has asked me. So Eric says, I heard about a Microsoft partner that's now selling contracts as a subscription. Tell me more, Eric. Do you mean service contracts? Do you mean support contracts, support agreements? Or is this implementation? Like, what do you mean here? I'd be interested in knowing. No, I have met partners at conferences who are selling support contracts, and it's basically annual subscription. And they say, hey, based on the number of users, based on the complexity of your implementation, you are going to be $250 a month, and that gives you X, Y, and Z services for support. And my concern around that is, how do you define the scope? How do you define the SLA? So I am in touch with that partner to understand their support agreements. They showed me briefly, but like, I have lots of questions of how do I implement that? I'd love to do it, but the exposure is kind of high. So I want to do it right. So if you are offering support contracts, service agreements, fixed price, monthly, whatever those are, how do you control the scope? How do you control the number of tickets? How do you control the length of any given support request? How do you control SLA, right? So it's challenging. How do you estimate that? So anyway, let me know. Type of contracts, an MS partner uses contracts that you can then use it in your partner. I see. So a Microsoft partner that is offering contracts for other Microsoft partners. Yeah, based on my experience, I'm going to guess very few partners are going to buy that. One, because they're kind of cheap, they're lazy, and they think they're fine. And just like these partners have not gone to a lawyer to get their contract reviewed, I'm going to guess there aren't going to be many partners who are going to take up another partner on their offer to offer them the contract package. But let me know who that is, Eric. I'm happy to reach out to them and learn what they're going to do. I probably wouldn't subscribe to it, so I'm a case study, a great example of that. I'd rather have the agreements that work for me, and I'm willing to pay $1,000 or $2,000 for those agreements that are appropriate for our practice. But maybe they have an offer that I'd be interested in. So Friday, today, I'm going to modify my application based on after 13 years. This customer's like, hey, can we have this config file option that defaults UI? Okay, cool. I need to finalize a file import statement of work so that we can start development, and we'll see how that project goes. And then I need to figure out what we're going to do with this whole lawyer and contract review thing from partner or up counsel. So, not my favorite task, but okay. Thank you, Eric. Interested to know more. Summit NA roadshows wrap up the year. We have 2 in December: Houston, December 9th, Fort Lauderdale, December 11th. I do not believe there are any in October or November, last I checked. So double check those dates and head on over to a Summit roadshow. Excellence update: Berlin, El Salvador is moving along. Jocelyn is working on report layouts. She is jumping on those, getting those done. And she and I were on the call where we learned about copy document feature, the recurring purchase invoice lines, I suppose. And now we potentially will go down the service contract, recurring billing, whatever they call it, see whether that's worth touching with a 10-foot cattle prod. David is becoming an expert in Eric's product, Simple Object Designer, and he is also doing report layouts. And Eric, we have a question about SOD, specifically, is there any alternative to having to wait to the middle of the night or after hours to do updates to SOD changes and do those deployments? because David is petrified about doing an SOD push of new changes, kicking everyone out and breaking something. So if you could prepare a single pager as to the implications of an SOD update push and best practices around that, implications, what are the dangers, what could break, and obviously it depends on what we're doing in SOD, but that is top of mind for David because he starts at night, he does his changes, he has to do his testing, he has to do his deployment, and he's going to bed at midnight, 1 a.m. So we are open to suggestions on how to do production updates because he is in the thick of it. Every single day he's having to deploy changes as those requests come in. Ronald continues his work on the McCorma SuperCheck overflow. Specifically, I am having him do data prep and testing over and over, prepare 15, prepare 30, prepare 50 purchase invoices or vendor purchase journals, whatever they're called, vendor journals. So Eric says working on a thing where you can schedule a deployment to production from a sandbox. Okay, that would be nice. And make sure to have instructions on how to have discipline procedures because as you know, Tanya, love her to death, but she is running around like a chicken with her head cut off, dealing with 50 requests. She's throwing them over to David, and David's like, wait, what? And David is trying to scramble to do things, so anticipate a partner who may not be the most methodical or organized. So please, in your instruction, include requirements, caveats, best practices for how to be methodical and procedural and by the book to make the changes, test, and deploy and what to look out for. We'd love that. So Ronald is building all the test data, practicing that, having 10, 15, 30, 50 sample invoices that will be paid on a check remittance. What are the different formats? How do we test? Because his job is to demo and sell this internally so that Tanya and Alyssa know that Ronald knows his stuff on the McCorma SuperCheck and overflow, and that he can implement and know exactly how everything is going to behave before we attempt to do a deployment of this. And we've already run into some weird things like, wait, where's this option? Why is this defaulting? How do we change this? Why does this format look like this? So we're essentially doing internal dog fooding, right? Just make sure everything works properly before we even sell it internally. And this is an example of a luxury that we have, given the capacity of ERP Center of Excellence, that many partners just don't have the luxury. They don't have the luxury of an internal resource spending 16, 24 hours finding every potential issue before they offer this to a customer. So you pretty much got to learn on the fly. We have the luxury of Ronald being able to focus on this for a week or two before we attempt to deploy it. So that's the expertise we're trying to offer to our customers and our partners through ERP Center of Excellence and the lovely ERP support team. Franklin, as I mentioned, is resuming his development of Tenant Admin Dashboard. I am very excited about this. One page, Business Central. We choose from among all of our customers. We click the tenant. We click a button. It pulls all of their environments on the same page. It interrogates all of the apps, all of the capacity, all the update settings, which version, which date, what's going on. We cannot pull Entra apps, unfortunately, from Business Central Admin API. That is one limitation, so we'll have to figure that out. But once we set that up, that should be good. There are a few limitations in the Admin API, but it's looking good. And this will allow us to avoid having to go to Partner Admin Center or BC Admin Center for every single customer. So that is our strategic goal. And Fatima is continuing her journey of PMI, PMP, studying and certification for project management. And she is now running our daily afternoon team review calls. We do a call at 8 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Pacific every single day, 2 calls a day. What are you going to do today? What did you do today? What are you going to do tomorrow? And every single day, twice a day, we are on task. So she checks in with the team in Espanol, and then they translate for me to catch up. And she is doing that. As I mentioned, she will also be running our Doug user group in El Salvador, the first in Latin America. Very cool. And she is also leading the charge of El Coyolar Christmas Festival planning. And next Friday, the team is going to get a microbus to head all the way to San Salvador to check out China Depot and other stores in order to go toy shopping. So that starts next Friday to get that started. And with that, Q&A. What are you working on? What fun Business Central antics are you experiencing? Like me. Like, what didn't you know existed in Business Central? Like the copy document. I'm sure it's obvious, but we've just never explored 17 menu levels deep to see what this button does. But we're learning slowly but surely. And the fun Q&A item this week is a fascinating headline that I saw, given that I'm dealing with contracts and liability and lawyers. And how do you deal with this? And this is awesome. It's kind of genius, pretty nefarious, but genius. So JP Morgan foots $115 million legal bills for Charlie Javis, the co-defendant who scammed JP Morgan out of $175 million. And I read this and I said, wait a minute, hold up. What? Turns out, I think, that JP Morgan acquired this company that claimed to offer something about like student loans, or I don't remember what it was, but something JP Morgan was interested. They paid somehow, over the course of this acquisition and fees, $175 million to acquire this. Turned out to be a massively fraudulent fake company that like apparently grossly overstated number of customers, just pure, shell game fraud. JP Morgan discovers this, sues the founders who sold this and did the deal. Well, it turns out that these people had a rather brilliant clause in their contract, which was in theory to JP Morgan's favor, saying, hey, if we are sued, or not in their favor, but to the organization's favor, saying, hey, if we're sued by someone, you incur the liability by acquiring us, right? So if we're sued for intellectual property violation, you're responsible for this. And somehow the clause involved legal protection of the founders. And genius move, right? Like mad scientist move. So JP Morgan is suing the founders who committed massive fraud as part of this deal. And they really hoodwinked JP Morgan to the extent that these people mounted a $115 million legal defense. I think they lost, but in the process, they hired every high-priced lawyer in the nation and spent $115 million on the legal bills. And JP Morgan had to pay those bills in addition to the $175 million they're out on the deal. Like, hats off. And that's why you review your legal documents and you know what's in them and you do not agree to terms that you do not understand or haven't really thought out the chess moves that these can occur. So, like, there you go. That's why you need to do your due diligence on legal agreements. And with that, I'm exhausted and it is Friday. So I raise a cup to you all who are on the battlefield of Business Central. May your drains flow freely. May your architectures anticipate future problems, even the edge cases. And may your simple object designer deployments go smoothly. Cheers. Have a great weekend. Que tengas un buen fin de semana. Sorry, I messed that one up. Have a good weekend. Adios.